This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcasting Network. I am your host here today on the Sunday edition of the show, Josh Strickland. I am back from a brief hiatus, a 1-week hiatus, as I had some family matters to deal with, but I am back, and I'm going to go over a lot of things that I missed while I was gone, which is mostly NFL draft related. So today we'll be doing a NFL draft overview. We'll talk about the Packers draft more in depth. We'll talk about the MLB realignment plan, or another plan that they have proposed. NBA opening up facilities. We'll talk about NCAA athletes getting paid. And then we're going to start the first edition of our brand new series that's going to be on at the end, the last topic of every single show, except for Tuesday shows while The Last Dance is still going. But we'll be doing draft analysis on every single NFL team, and that will be topic 6 for every single show from here on out. Today we'll start with the Cincinnati Bengals, who had the number 1 pick. We'll pretty much go down that order. So the Thursday show we'll do the Redskins. Anyways, let's talk about the NFL draft. So this is more of a overview of the whole event as a whole. As we all know, this is the first ever virtual NFL draft, which is a strange thing to say, strange thing to watch in general. In my opinion, I think they actually did, the NFL and ESPN, they actually did a really good job with the NFL draft, making it virtual. There are, of course, some gripes, but I think overall the event was pretty nice. I saw a lot of people actually liked it better than the regular format of the huge stage, huge crowds, and the spectacle of an event. I saw a lot of people actually liked this format a lot better because you got to see the players with their families, with their loved ones when they got drafted. You got to see the coaches and the GMs, the higher ups for these NFL teams. You see them with their families and stuff like that. It kind of humanizes the players, humanizes the coaches, humanizes everything about the NFL, and about how, I mean, just seeing some of the GMs just get super hyped up for the fact that they got the guy that they wanted. It humanizes everything and kind of makes it a little bit more enjoyable to watch, in my opinion, because, I mean, you get to see the human side of everything, and you get to see how legitimately excited everyone is to get drafted, first off, and to draft in general. So I think it was really well done from that perspective, and I know a lot of people enjoyed that aspect of it a lot more than the regular aspect that we usually get. However, ESPN kind of went overboard with the human aspect of everything. I know there are huge complaints about the good old airing out of tragedies and stuff like that. Whenever someone got drafted, they just immediately threw out tragedies after tragedy, which is a way to try to humanize the player and make it so that the NFL is their only way out. But a lot of these guys, I mean, yes, they had that tragedy, but for the most part, unfortunately, I mean, most of these guys grew up in a well-off family. I mean, a lot of them did not, of course, but I mean, the NFL, I mean, yeah, ESPN and the NFL were kind of framing it as the NFL was the only way these kids could have gotten out of their situations, which is just not true. I mean, a lot of them, they were talking about their tragedies while the kid was sitting in a big house, a mansion type deal or something like that, and it was just kind of a fart. But I mean, I know a lot of people were complaining about that, like, because it kept bringing up random tragedies and stuff like that. People just did not like that at all. But They did it to try to humanize it a little bit more, stuff like that. So let's do a recap of the first round, just real quick. Just a quick recap. So number one overall, of course, was Joe Burrow out of LSU to the Cincinnati Bengals. Not shocking at all. Everybody knew it. If you thought the Bengals were going to take someone else or trade back, then I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it was pretty obvious that this was their guy. He's from Ohio. He's the best quarterback he was the best. He had one of the best offensive seasons in college football history. I mean, it's an obvious number one choice. I mean, so Cincinnati, they took another quarterback to get with that number one overall pick, and yeah, it's Joe Burrow. I mean, not shocking at all. And second least shocking thing is Chase Young to the Washington Redskins is pick number 2. Redskins are looking to build up that defense with Ron Rivera. They have a pretty strong defensive line over there, and adding Chase Young makes it even stronger. I can see if they tried to trade back, but you can't deny that Chase Young is the best defensive player in the draft. So it's not shocking that the Redskins went after him. Number 3, Detroit Lions. They took Jeff Okudah. So I'm glad that I'm not the only person who doesn't know how to say that name. But also from Ohio State, first 3 guys in the draft were played for Ohio State at one point in their collegiate careers. So good job for Ohio State for having fantastic talent. This one, Lions probably tried to trade back because they didn't really need anything, but got them the best corner in the draft. So he's a marvelous fit for their system. So hopefully that works out for them. The New York Giants were number 4. They took Andrew Thomas, offensive tackle. They didn't need a quarterback. They didn't need a running back. They needed to build up that offensive line and also kind of fix that defense. But offensive line was definitely their biggest thing going, so smart move by them. Miami, they took Tua, not shocking at all. Now we have the quarterback controversy in Miami between Ryan Fitzpatrick and Tua. Will they let Tua sit for a year and just kind of heal up a little bit more, or will they try to push him out there? That we will never know. Then the Chargers took Justin Herbert, which once again, not surprising. And that's kind of a trend in this draft, except for number 7. Number 7, a lot of people were saying they should have took Isaiah Simmons, but the Carolina Panthers went with Derek Brown, big boy defensive tackle, which is not a bad move at all. It was just people just wanted them to take Isaiah Simmons, which the Cardinals then took Isaiah Simmons. Jaguars, they took C.J. Henderson, a cornerback, not surprising. And once again, that's pretty much the trend of this whole first round up until about like pick 25 or something like that. This first draft was kind of boring. I mean, seemed like every team was making really good decisions throughout this whole first round of the draft. The Cleveland Browns, they took Jedrick Wills Jr., offensive tackle from Alabama. That was a great pick by them. Jets, they took Mekhi Becton, offensive tackle. That's a great choice by them. The Raiders got Henry Ruggs III, which if people were surprised, he was the first receiver off the board. But I mean, the Raiders going for speed more than anything, which is never shocking. Continue with that. I mean, Tampa Bay, they took a tackle to help protect Tom Brady. 49ers took Kinlaw, defensive tackle, just to bolster that defensive line. That was a good pick. Broncos took Jerry Jeudy, which I was saying, I tweeted this out. It's like, we're really forcing John Elway to make a good draft pick here, and they got Jerry Jeudy just fell on their lap. The best receiver in the draft, in my opinion, just fell in their lap. So good for Denver. That was a good pick. The Falcons got A.J. Terrell, who's a great cornerback. He's from Atlanta too. Dallas Cowboys got CeeDee Lamb. That's a fantastic pick. Nobody expected the Cowboys to somehow land CeeDee Lamb, but they did, and that was a fantastic draft pick for the Cowboys. Dolphins, they got an offensive tackle. The Raiders then got Damon Arnett, which is a pretty good corner. Jaguars, they got Kayvon Chaisson, which is great addition to their defense. Eagles got Jalen Reagor, which is a lot of Eagles fans were hoping they would move up to get one of the top 3 receivers, but Reagor is not too shabby himself. Justin Jefferson went to the Vikings. That's a good pick. Chargers got Kenneth Murray, linebacker, is a fantastic pick. Saints got Cesar Ruiz, center, great pick. 49ers got Brandon Ayuk, wide receiver from Arizona State. That was a good pick, I think, as well. And then you get all the way to 26, and that's where we will pick up in the next segment. We talk about the Green Bay Packers and their NFL draft. But overall, this draft, up until the first 25 draft picks, were pretty easy to predict, and it was kind of boring. I mean, this is one of the first years that I actually went in depth in studying and stuff like that, reading a bunch of mock drafts and reading a bunch of analysis about the NFL draft. So I was not shocked at all by any of the picks that happened, and they were all actually really good picks. But when we return, we'll talk about the Green Bay Packers and their questionable pick that they made when we come back.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco, ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So we all know what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the first round pick for the Green Bay Packers here, because it was at the time, like I said in the last segment, the whole first round was kind of going by, and I was like, no team's really screwed up. Nobody's really reached. Nobody's really missed on any prospects so far, in my opinion. It's kind of boring. I mean, then you have the Green Bay Packers. Green Bay Packers, man, they I wouldn't say they screwed up, but I have a Packers fan as a friend, and he was not happy with this, this transpiring, I guess, would be the word to use. But so if you don't know, the Packers, they traded up like 3 spots or something like that in round 1 to move up to 26. People are expecting them to get a threat, get an offensive piece for Aaron Rodgers, because they haven't drafted a round one offensive piece in like 15 years or something like that. Like since Aaron Rodgers, I believe. So, Aaron Rodgers, I mean, he had a interview with Pat McAfee before the Packers picked, and he said it would be pretty cool if that happened. But instead, they traded up and they drafted Jordan Love, quarterback out of Utah State. And then Twitter did the thing that Twitter does and speculate. Is this it for Aaron Rodgers? Of course it's not it for Aaron Rodgers. He has 4 more years on his contract. But you can't deny Aaron Rodgers is 36 years old. He is getting up there, and 36 is about the age that Aaron Rodgers got drafted when Brett Favre was 36. So it's clear. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, he's coming off 2 pedestrian seasons. I mean, he's been injured for a little bit of those. And the Packers might be seeing the light at the end of the tunnel for Aaron Rodgers' career. So picking up another quarterback is not a terrible idea in theory, but it's a terrible idea when you talk about people. I listened to a great podcast which was about Jerry Krause and the Chicago Bulls, how the Last Dance documentary is making Jerry Krause seem like the bad guy because he wanted to break up the team or something like that. But this podcast I listened to, which is Bomani Jones' podcast, The Right Time, if you take a listen, he mentioned that, I mean, Jerry Krause made a lot of great decisions. He was actually a really good GM. It's just he wasn't very good at reading a room. And that's kind of where we're at with the Green Bay Packers. My issue with this is not that they drafted Jordan Love. You can draft Jordan Love all you want. My issue with this is that they moved up. They traded picks. I don't have the official trade right in front of me, but let's see if I can find it here. So they moved up from 30 to 26. They tried to trade with the Vikings to get number 25, but that did not work. So the Packers moved up to 26. They draft Jordan Love. Now, this article I have pulled up right now, it mentions that the Colts, whose first selection would be number 34, they were thinking of trading up for Love. That's what this article is saying. But then another source says that the Colts wouldn't have even entertained taking Love until their second selection, which is number 44 in the second round. So my issue with this is I don't think Jordan Love would have been off the board if the Packers stayed put at 30. Now, there's a lot of speculation that there's another team that wanted to jump up and get it. The Colts make sense. I don't know what other team would have jumped up because most of the other teams that needed a quarterback, that were going to draft a quarterback, already drafted a quarterback at this point in the game. Jacksonville, if they really wanted it, they could have done it. But it was a risk that the Packers weren't going to take, so they shipped their 4th-round pick to Miami to move up, draft Jordan Love with the Dolphins' choice at number 26. And it just didn't make sense for a lot of people, and a lot of people are angry. Aaron Rodgers is probably one of those people. He has not shown it, of course, because Aaron Rodgers is very good at not showing his emotions, which is a very good trait to have as a professional athlete. But the issue with this is I don't think they needed to trade up. The issue with this is I don't even think they needed to draft him in the first round. I don't think anybody was going to take Jordan Love. Because if you really think about it, most teams, I mean, maybe the Saints would have drafted him, maybe. But most of the teams who needed a quarterback already got a quarterback up to this point in the draft. So I don't know. But there's a lot of speculation now. Is Jordan Love here to replace Aaron Rodgers? Do we have another Brett Favre situation here where Aaron Rodgers will leave and Jordan Love will take over and become a Hall of Fame quarterback? We don't know. We don't know if Jordan Love is good enough. A lot of people are making the comparison with Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers because of this situation alone. But let me dispel some of this. The reason Aaron Rodgers getting taken in the first round was such a big deal when he got drafted was because he was supposed to be the number 1 pick. He was projected to be the number 1 pick for the longest time, and then he dropped all the way to the late first round. That makes sense. Jordan Love was never, ever considered the number 1 pick in this draft. If you go all the way back to last year, at the end of last year's draft, Jordan Love was nowhere near the quarterback discussion. You had Tua, and that's pretty much it. You had Tua and Justin Herbert, I guess. That's it. Tua's going to be the number 1 pick. Then Joe Burrow comes out of nowhere. Not necessarily coming out of nowhere, but Joe Burrow comes out, has one of the greatest offensive seasons in college football, and does his thing, and now he's the number 1 pick. Jordan Love has always been number 4 in this draft. Always. So this is not a similar situation. There is a good chance that Love could be a bust, and you wasted the last few years of having Aaron Rodgers on a bust. But the fact of the matter is, we don't know, but I just feel like there's so many other things that the Packers could have, so many other people that the Packers could have drafted. They could have gotten a receiver. They could have gotten a running back, which they got a running back with A.J. Dillon with their second pick. But, I mean, I don't understand. But it's interesting. But there you have it. I mean, one veteran scout said that Jordan Love was as smart as Rodgers. So few quarterbacks are. So that's a good trait. It's still just frustrating and it's still confusing, and I understand. I mean, I could pull up my text from my Packers friend, but it's weird. It's a weird draft pick. It's just weird because they didn't need him, but the rest of their draft also didn't really make that much sense. They needed a receiver because their receivers are lacking right now. They got A.J. Dillon, which is a great running back. He's a great running back from Boston College. They got him. I think that was a great pick. But then they got a fullback / tight end. Then they got a linebacker. Then they got a guard and a center. They got 2 guards and a center, which is fine. Then they got a safety to TCU. And then they got another linebacker. They never, in a draft chock full of very talented receivers, they did not grab a single receiver. I mean, they could have gotten T. Higgins. I was expecting them to take T. Higgins until they got Jordan Love. I was expecting them to get T. Higgins, and T. Higgins was going to be a huge target for Aaron Rodgers and stuff like that, but instead he went to the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, I'll go more in depth on all of this stuff when we get to the Packers in my daily analysis, I guess we can call it. I don't know. In the draft analysis segment, whenever we get to the Packers, which will be like 2 months from now, which we'll find out we'll find out more, I guess, more information about it. But right now, it's still just a baffling decision that you kind of pissed off your star quarterback with. So it's going to be interesting to see how those relations kind of go on. I mean, you got a lot of rumors and innuendo now that Aaron Rodgers wants to leave, but we'll find out. We'll see. When we come back, we'll talk about MLB realignment. There's a new proposal that's going on. It's another realignment. We'll discuss that when we return.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So last time we talked about the MLB and realignment, we discussed their realignment plan for just kind of playing in their spring training divisions with the Grapefruit League and the Cactus League out in Arizona, because Florida and Arizona, they could be two hubs, you could say, where teams could just the groups of teams can just stay in that state, travel, play in a baseball stadium with no fans, stuff like that. That was a proposal a couple weeks back. We discussed it here on the show, and I discussed it would be pretty interesting. It would be pretty cool, and I mean, it's kind of a good idea, but not really. It needs to be a little fleshed out more. But now we have a new proposal that we need to flesh out and we need to speculate about. This time splitting teams into 3 10-team divisions. So now the idea is that we can put them in Arizona, we can put them in Florida, and now wild card state Texas. The big state of Texas, which, of course, Texas has no shortage of baseball stadiums. I mean, it's Texas. First off, everything's big in Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas. So, Texas, they're big fans of baseball out there. You got the Rangers' new park. You got the Astros park. You got the Rangers' old park. So, that's 3 at least. So, could play in Texas. So here are the official details. MLB is considering a 3-division, 10-team plan in which teams play only within their division, a concept gaining support among owners and executives. It would abolish the traditional American and National Leagues and realign the divisions based on geography. The divisions would keep many of the natural rivals together while playing one another before an expanded playoff format. So there you have it. So the 3 divisions, we could have the East Coast division, which would be in Florida. We could have a West Coast division, which would be in Arizona. And we would have a Central division, which would be in Texas. So they want to keep them geographically, keep the geographical rivalries intact. They want to keep everything close so it's not too much travel for the teams to get to where they need to be. It will benefit broadcasting. Fans, of course, will not be allowed into the ballparks, more than likely, if this does gain traction and gets off the ground. But they will make sure that it would be easily watched on television or online, because it's a pretty big deal if you can be one of the only leagues on TV. So It's important to note, of course, they're kicking around a lot of ideas at the moment, like I mentioned before, the Cactus League and the Grapefruit League, spring training idea that we talked about last time with 6 5-team divisions, which we discussed teams in those divisions, which I'm trying to see so here's what the divisions would look like if we did the 3 10-team divisions. You would have the Yankees, Mets, Red Sox, Nationals, Orioles, Phillies, Pirates, Blue Jays, Rays, and Marlins. So it's very interesting to me that the Braves are not considered in the Eastern Division, especially when most of their divisional rivals are in the East. That doesn't really make sense. They put the Braves in the Central, but let's go ahead into the Central. You got the Cubs, White Sox, Brewers, Cardinals, Royals, Reds, Indians, Twins, Braves, and Tigers. Like I said, this doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I mean, the Braves kind of seem the odd man out in the Central Division. You got all their rivals in the East. It doesn't really make sense. I guess the Braves are just the odd man out in this situation, in this theoretical situation here. But then you have the West, you got the Dodgers, Angels, Giants, Athletics, Padres, Diamondbacks, Rockies, Rangers, Astros, and Mariners. Now, first off, let's just go ahead and say it. The Central right there is going to be a bloodbath because the Cubs are usually going to be okay. The White Sox made huge moves here in the offseason. The Brewers are supposed to be good with Christian Yelich coming back. The Cardinals, they're going to be good. The Royals are the Royals. The Reds made a huge offseason moves. The Indians could be good. The Twins made huge offseason moves. And then, of course, the Braves, who won their division. I mean, you have a bloodbath there in the Central. And then the East, I mean, you got the Yankees, Nationals, they're going to be good. The Phillies are going to be good. Other than that, I mean, it's kind of just those 3 teams. So it really depends what the playoff structure is going to look like. Which I can't seem to find what they're thinking about for an expanded playoff and how it would work with this 3-team setup. But I'm still kind of wondering why the Braves are the odd man out here in the East, and they got delegated to the Central. Let's think about it this way. I mean, you got the Twins. The Braves have history with the Twins and the Indians. They do. I mean, they played in the playoffs. They played in the World Series. They have a history with those 2 teams. They have a history with the Cardinals because they got shellacked by the Cardinals last year. Technically a history with the Cubs, mostly because they were the only 2 nationally televised teams in the 90s. And I wouldn't really count that. The Brewers, because the Braves used to be in Milwaukee, so they I mean, there's a thing there. But other than that, that Central Division makes no sense. It seems like they just kind of threw the Braves in there. And like, you could easily, I understand it's geographic, but I mean, you could easily move Pittsburgh into the Central and everything would be fine. Because, I mean, you just swap Pittsburgh and Atlanta and it makes perfect sense. Because it looks like you have the American East and the National East. It looks like you have the AL East and then the National League East all in the East except for the Pirates. You just put the Pirates in there random. So that's my one gripe about this one. Now, this is not an official alignment structure. This is from a website that I found. This is from USA Today, an article from USA Today. It's just speculating. But so yeah, it's just a possible one. So it's not official. But this is another instance of Major League Baseball trying their hardest to try to get a season going. They're thinking about starting in late July, maybe early July, maybe by July 4th, I think was the main date that they're going to try for. But right now it's not looking great. But they're going to try to play at least 100 games, something like that. I mean, the season's going to go beyond October, and they're going to have to figure something out for those playoffs because some of those places get a little cold at that point. So we're going to have to try to figure out what we're going to do for the playoffs if, for instance, like the Yankees or Milwaukee. I mean, Milwaukee plays indoors, never mind. But that's still an issue that they're going to have to try to figure out. But it's very The MLB's trying their hardest right now. They're coming up with different realignment proposals and stuff like that, and it's going to be we're going to see if any of this actually goes through. It's going to be very interesting to see what the final format actually is going to be. I like the 3 division setup, except for a USA Today article, which kind of messed it up. But I like the potential of a three division setup with all the AL East, NL East, and the Centrals and the West all put together in 3 10-team divisions. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Playing it in Arizona, Florida, and Texas. I don't know where exactly they're playing at Texas, but Arizona and Florida, you can just play at the spring training sites. You don't have fans, so the size of the ballparks don't matter. Once again, the main issue about this is essential staff. You got to worry about, what about the essential staff that have to be there? Who are they going to be around? Are they going to go back to their families? Are they going to just be away from their families for months at a time? I mean, there's a lot of other logistical issues to this that people aren't thinking about. But sports need to come back. I mean, NASCAR's trying their hardest to come back. UFC is still there, I suppose. But we are trying. You have a lot of sports that are reaching their final stretch, per se, because they are kind of done with the whole not playing thing, mostly because they're losing a lot of money. And it's May. It's May. I don't know if you knew that. It's May. But baseball season would be in full swing right now. We would be NBA playoffs, Stanley Cup playoffs right now. But sadly, we're not. Sadly, I watched rock skipping today on ESPN. So when we return, we'll talk about not MLB. We'll talk about the NBA. They're opening up some facilities in some states that allow it. And we'll discuss that in more detail when we return.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
So, starting next Friday, James Harden in Houston, Texas. He can walk onto the practice court in the Toyota Center in downtown Houston, and he can start preparing for the NFL playoff. I mean, not the NFL, the NBA playoff. Luka Doncic can do the same at the Dallas Mavericks practice gym right across the street from that beautiful arena that they have. Donovan Mitchell can do the same thing in Utah with the Jazz, but LeBron James, meanwhile, can't resume training at the Lakers facility just outside of Los Angeles. Neither can Kawhi Leonard or Giannis Antetokounmpo for the Milwaukee Bucks. None of these guys. States are slowly starting to reopen their businesses, and the NBA is starting to allow its teams to open training facilities for highly regulated, sanitized individual workouts for players beginning on May 8th, which is 5 days away from now. Gyms have been closed since mid-March, days after the league stopped playing games on March 11th due to the spread of the coronavirus, and it remains unclear when or if this 2019-20 season will be salvaged in any form. But when it comes to the facility reopening that some see as a crucial first step in this unprecedented process, there's a significant catch. 15 of the league's 30 teams, including the top 2 in the West with the Lakers and the Clippers, the top 4 in the East with the Milwaukee Bucks, Toronto Raptors, Boston Celtics, and Miami Heat, are in locations that will still be under shelter-in-place orders by the end of next week. So those teams cannot come back to work next Friday, even if they wanted to, creating at least some competitive advantage for the teams that will have access to these training sites. So, the thing I keep hearing is the whole competitive advantage idea, said one player on a team that could resume individual workouts next week. If we open up half the team's facilities when it's safe, what's a team like Brooklyn going to do? That's a question because I certainly have no idea what that looks like. So according to the league's tracking of state-by-state government orders related to the virus, the Suns, Nuggets, Magic, Hawks, Pacers, Timberwolves, Hornets, Cavaliers, Thunder, 76ers, Grizzlies, Rockets, Mavericks, Spurs, and Jazz all live in states where stay-at-home orders will expire on or before May 8th. The Sixers play their games in Pennsylvania, where restrictions are receding, but practice in New Jersey, where they are still in place. At present, the organization does not know what it will be able to do next week. So, I'm looking at the state-by-state guidelines here. The Wizards, for instance, would have to wait until May 15th. That's when the stay-at-home for Washington, D.C. expires. The Bulls in Illinois, they have to wait until May 30th. May 18th for the Celtics. Pelicans have to wait until May 15th. Canada, they don't have an end date specified for the Raptors. Oregon for the Trailblazers, it says until ended by the governor. Then, of course, Wisconsin, the Bucks, they have until May 26th, and that's including non-essential, or that's including essential operations. So that leaves the four California teams, the Lakers, Clippers, Kings, and Warriors, the Wizards, Bulls, Pelicans, Celtics, Pistons, Knicks, Nets of New York, the Raptors, Blazers, Bucks, and Heat as teams located in cities or states where lockdowns will still be in effect. On Wednesday, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said that most of the state could start to reopen on May 4th, excluding the Miami-Dade County, where the virus is still spreading. As of now, the playoff matchups would be as followed. So we have the matchups here. So you have the number one seed, the Bucks, who can't work out, against the Magic, who can. You have the Pacers, who can work out, against the Heat, who cannot. The Celtics, who can't work out, versus the Sixers, who can, sort of. And then you have the Nets and the Raptors, who both can't work out. Then over in the West, you have the Lakers, who can't work out, against the Memphis Grizzlies, who can. Thunder and Jazz are fine. Nuggets and Rockets are fine. Then you have the Mavericks, who can work out, facing the Clippers, who cannot work out right now. So the NBA front office clearly sees the problem. In a 19-page memo sent to all 30 teams, which outlines the new guidelines for opening practice facilities, which was obtained by the Athletic, which I'm reading this from. So, a league spokesman declined to discuss what the alternative arrangements could be. The NBA could lobby state's governor or Canadian equivalent for an exemption. In the case of Florida, it probably wouldn't be a hard sell. DeSantis' order specifically cite the guidelines laid out by Donald Trump, who has also said he wants sports to come back soon. Another idea would be to allow a franchise to cross state lines to work out in places where restrictions have been eased, and that opens a whole new bottle of headaches. So Rob Pelinka, Lakers GMs, and the team's legal counsel lobbied LA health officials for help in getting the practice facility open in El Segundo, California. Source confirmed, and the Lakers are hardly alone when it comes to lobbying efforts. So all four of the league's California teams are hoping to convince Governor Gavin Newsom to include them in the stage 2 of his reopening plan, perhaps with the help of the mayors in their respective cities. Newsom detailed via Twitter on Tuesday that stage would include gradually reopening some lower risk workplaces with adaptations. So a lot of lobbying going on here. So, but the NBA releases 19-page memo. What is in that memo? So we got the health check is included on this. So no more than 2 hours before entering the facility, players and staff members who have been deemed essential must have one set of symptom and temperature checks. If the player or staff member has a temperature, team physicians will advise on next steps. So players who are working out at the facility must also be given an electrocardiogram and a troponin test as part of cardiac screening efforts. Any player who was infected with the coronavirus discussed with the team's consulting cardiologist to determine whether any additional cardiac testing is necessary. As for the COVID-19 testing, the memo states that the decision whether to test a player or any other team-affiliated individual for COVID-19 should be made by the physician in consultation with the infectious disease specialist. Teams are required to set up an isolation protocol and designate areas for possible testing. Players must wear face masks or face coverings at all time, except for the period when they are engaged in physical activity. Staff members are required to wear face masks and gloves at all times. Players and staff are expected to stay at least 12 feet apart, though there's a written acknowledgement that it may not be possible when a player is receiving treatment. Areas in the facility that are deemed non-essential, like break rooms, player lounges, and kitchen areas, are all closed. Then you have the workout portion. So only individual workouts are allowed and only on a voluntary basis. So a one player, one basket rule. Players are not allowed to work with the team's head coach or any other first row assistant, but can work with behind the bench assist or player development coaches. General managers are not allowed to watch workouts, even from afar. No more than 4 players are allowed in the facility at any given time. Then you have the dirty work. That is what's called here. The NBA got an assist from Spalding when it came to teaching teams the proper way to clean a basketball, which includes step-by-step instructions, which means mix quarter teaspoon of dish detergent per gallon of water with a clean cloth or towel. Wipe down the basketball with the dish detergent and water mix. Further, wipe down the basketball with water alone. Allow the basketball to air dry. Once dry, spray the basketball with an EPA-approved disinfectant. Ditto for the floors, which I'm not going through the step-by-step of cleaning floors, but anyways, so teams will still not be allowed to hold practices, scrimmages, 3-on-3 games, or anything of the sort. So basically we're talking about glorified shooting and running drills at the moment. But it's still a small leg up for the teams that can do this right away versus the ones that can't. And that stands for teams likely to make a run in the playoffs, as well as teams headed for the lottery and a fresh start next season. Young players on teams such as the Atlanta Hawks or the Cleveland Cavaliers could get extra work with professional coaches, while players on the Warriors and the Knicks cannot. As of now, no player is allowed into his team's facility or some other gym to work out. Development staffers are not supposed to be working with the players. If a player has a private gym at home, cool. Many have said they do not. Others, according to multiple sources, are practicing secretly on their own at gyms that are supposed to be closed. But one assistant coach from a contending team said it's just safer to have them in our gym instead of random gyms all over the place, which I agree with. So these guidelines for these workouts were developed by the league, which is consulting with numerous healthcare professionals in conjunction with the players' union. Multiple sources said, so at least as a group, the players are somewhat on board with this. This is the first step, as we mentioned earlier. This is the first step to the NBA coming back. You got to get players back into shape, pretty much. I'm sure a lot of them have been working out during this whole time, but especially these playoff teams, they got to get back in shape for the most part. So this is a very important time. This is a very important step for the NBA and for sports in general to make a comeback under these weird circumstances. So this is a great first step for the NBA. When we come back, we'll talk about college athletes finally getting paid for their own likeness when we return.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
So on Wednesday, April 29th, the NCAA released a much anticipated list of recommendations that double in many ways as to use the NCAA president Mark Emmert's favorite word, guardrails, for the governing body as it moves forward with name, image, and likeness reform. Now, I could read off this whole thing, but I'm not going to, because it is a 81-page list of recommendations, so no. But there are some specific proposals included, such as the ability for agents to negotiate sponsorship or endorsement deals, and the requirement that athletes not use school-issued gear and trademarks in any of their own promotional or marketing materials. There are the usual warnings about the dangers of boosters influencing players' recruitment with inflated offerings. There was also even the acknowledgement of the burgeoning market for social media influencers. The burgeoning market for influencers, you know. It's a big deal. Most of what came out Wednesday lacked clarity and invited way more questions than it actually answered. So what did Emmert have to say about this? He said, "We can't emphasize enough that what the board and what the working group brought forward was essentially a green light to explore those kinds of questions. That's what we'll see the members working on over the next 9 months." So, who's going to determine which deals are fair? Who is going to track disclosures? And will the eventual payments be made public? Will the restrictions that the NCAA wants to put in place to maintain its principles of amateurism actually hold up in a court of law? The short answer to all those questions is we don't know. Who knows? Who cares? Everyone cares, but who knows? What is certain, however, is whatever system the NCAA sets up will not come close to a true free market, which is a shocker to absolutely no one. It's not a shocker to me. If it's a shocker to you, then you're just not paying attention. So there's a cap without a cap being officially put in place. There's a cap on what the athletes' opportunities will be, said Jim Cavale, the CEO and founder of INFL CR, a company that helps athletes build brands digitally. Not as much value can happen if there are limitations between schools and their athletes using the same brand, or if there are limitations around being able to use marks or limitations on the athletes because of the categories the school is already partnering with on a brand. Over the course of an hour-long conference call on Wednesday morning, those leading the NCAA's efforts on NIL reform repeatedly said that there is no cap on an athlete's potential earnings, but in the same breath, they outlined those restrictions they want to put in place. The NCAA wants to control the process to decide whether or not a particular endorsement opportunity passes muster without strict criteria, said Darren Heitner, sports lawyer and founder of Heitner Legal. Heitner has been involved in crafting Florida's Student Athlete Achievement Act, which is expected to sign into law and would take effect in July 2021. My concern is that it will be subjectively applied and there will be big issues. This goes to the overall issue that the NCAA intends to create a restricted market as opposed to a free market, which is something that we have clearly intended to create in the state of Florida, and I believe in the state of California as well. So Emmert made it clear on Wednesday that he is asking again for support from the federal government as the NCAA faces an onslaught of bipartisan legislation from states like Florida and California seeking to allow compensation for college athletes. It's unclear if that means the NCAA simply wants to coordinated help fending off the state's push, or if the organization is actually seeking federal antitrust exemption. Part of what the organization seeks from Congress, too, is the establishment of a safe harbor to provide protection against lawsuits filed over NIL rules. The primary motivating factor of the NCAA is to quell the state-by-state effort to pass legislation that in effect would allow college athletes to exploit their names, images, and likenesses for commercial gain, Heitner said. The NCAA will purposely not go to the extent necessary to truly provide the college athletes the same rights that their colleagues have on college campuses. The NCAA also punted on the topic of group licensing, which would have helped bring back the beloved EA Sports video games of college football and basketball, which I still play to this day. The last one was made in 2013, and I still play it. I actually just won a national championship with Newberry College, which is a small college in South Carolina, with working group co-chair Val Ackerman calling it unworkable in college sports because there's no players' union with which to collectively bargain. The working group also asked schools to look at whether they want to exclude some third-party categories, such as shoe companies, from potentially lucrative deals with athletes, despite the fact that the athletic departments and coaches are permitted to take part in those deals. It would also give examples of likely permissible scenarios, from social media endorsements to an athlete hosting an in-person or virtual camp. These recommendations now will move to the rules-making structure in each of the NCAA's 3 divisions. The divisions are expected to adopt new NIL rules by January to take effect at the start of the 21-22 academic year. What is clear, though, is at the very least that there will be an opportunity for athletes when it's all said and done. For football stars and women's volleyball players alike, sponsorships without school involvement will reduce or eliminate gender equity issues. The technology and transparency tied to the process is the key moving forward. The fair market value assessment, the monitoring of NIL transactions, which comes with the requirement of disclosure on NIL transactions, all of those things are fundamental to any of this working, said Blake Lawrence, the CEO and co-founder of athlete marketing platform Open Doors. This won't work without a standard process for disclosing and sharing the actual market value of transactions across the country, which can be assessed to determine if they are fair or not. So Open Doors shared the following example, saying Southern Cal redshirt sophomore cornerback Isaac Taylor Stewart has accounted for 36 tackles and 8 career starts. Here's what his current accounts look like and what Open Doors calculates that a pro athlete with similar following, engagement rate, and average views per video would command endorsing products. So 17,310 followers on Twitter. That's $900 to $1,800 a year on Twitter. Dollars on Twitter. 32,798 followers on Instagram. So that would be about $4,000 to $6,000 a year on Instagram. 26,000 subscribers on YouTube. That would be $1,000 to $2,000 a year on YouTube. So that's a considerable opportunity for a college athlete. It's also an opportunity that his peers who aren't athletes can take advantage of right now, which is a part of the reason this reform is happening in the first place. This kind of conversation about compensation is one that will continue to happen over and over across the country in the coming months. Even with so many questions left unanswered, it's worth noting that even Wednesday's small step is significant for a governing body that has long insisted any form of compensation for athletes would destroy the bedrock of college sports as we know it. As it turns out, it won't. The NCAA finally acknowledged that. So Ackerman then went on to say, we believe wholeheartedly that college sports need to adapt and keep up with the times. We know that non-athlete students on college campuses today can pursue a range of commercial opportunities that are funded by third parties, particularly in the area of social media. We think that similar doors can and should be open to our athletes to the greatest extent possible. So there you have it. Basically, we have the baseline here. We have the base of the house built on the whole NIL debate here. There's still a lot to go through. There's still a lot of questions and a lot of answers that we need answered. It's a lot of it's just a huge minefield here that we gotta kind of navigate through. And well, the NCAA has to navigate through. I don't have to navigate through shit. I don't have to navigate through anything. But that's how the cookie crumbles, people. This is a very difficult topic. A lot of people think it's just as simple as just paying players. But this is a very difficult topic, and I am perfectly okay with this. I was not okay with universities paying players because, as you can tell right now, a lot of universities, a lot of athletic departments just can't afford to do that. A lot of athletic departments are in the red for all of their sports. So if you have to pay student athletes, you got to pay all of them, and that makes them even more in the red and stuff like that. Players getting money from their likeness, that's perfectly fine with me because, I mean, it's their likeness. You should be able to make money off of your face, you know? And also, I think it would be a little bit more fair for these smaller sports because if the athletic department's in charge of it, they can make sure it's kind of evenly distributed out among every single student athlete. So there's a lot of interesting things here that could make college athletics for the better. But there's a lot of things that can get screwed up, and I am fully confident that the NCAA will screw it up at some point. So don't get too excited yet if you are full on this idea. And if you're on the idea that this ruins college athletics forever, well, I mean, I don't think so. I think it's going to make it a little better because it's going to motivate players a little bit more. But it's happening, whether you like it or not. Now, when we come back, we'll do our draft analysis of the Cincinnati Bengals when we come back from the break.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
So here we go. This is going to be the new topic we talk about. This is the new topic. This is the new last topic for every single show, except for the Tuesday shows. The Tuesday shows will be recapping the Last Dance episodes, which I missed 3 and 4, but I'll be recapping 5 and 6 on the Tuesday show. But on the Sunday and Thursday shows, the last topic is reserved for my draft analysis. So I'll be going team by team based on what pick they had. So, of course, we're going to start off with the Cincinnati Bengals. They had the number 1 pick. So I'm going to be doing this every Sunday and Thursday. So I hope you enjoy it. I mean, it's going to save me. It's going to save me a lot of. I have content for 60 days. Of course, if a team had more than one pick in the first round, I'll talk about it. So I mean, but if a team did not have a pick, they'll be probably at the end of the list. Sorry, Houston Texans. They'll probably be the last team I talk about. But let's just get into it with the Cincinnati Bengals. They had the number 1 overall pick, and after months and months of intrigue and mystery, we finally found out who they took for their number 1 pick. And their number 1 pick, of course, is Joe Burrow. I mean, it's not that big of a mystery. I mean, like I mentioned way back in the beginning of the show, Joe Burrow is the obvious pick here. He's the obvious pick. He had the best offensive season for a quarterback in college football history, in my opinion. He had 60-plus touchdowns or something like that. He went crazy. They won a national championship. He won the Heisman. Not a lot of, a decent amount of players can say they did that. But, I mean, think about the last player who did that and got into the NFL. That was Cam Newton, I believe. Or was the number 1 overall pick, I should say, win a national championship, Heisman, and number 1 pick all within a couple months span. I think Cam Newton's the only other one was the last one to do that. So yeah, Joe Burrow, he's in that elite company, and he is obviously a fantastic pick here. So after that pick, you're thinking, okay, they got to go with offensive line, or they got to go with receiver. It's still pretty receiver-heavy draft here, so they went with T. Higgins with the 33rd overall pick in the NFL draft. That was their round 2 pick 1 there, which is a fantastic pick. T. Higgins, he's a big-bodied receiver. He goes after jump balls. He makes 50-50 balls into 80-20 balls. He has this very similar game to A.J. Green, who's another receiver on the Bengals. So now Joe Burrow, he has T. Higgins, he has A.J. Green. He has both of those guys to throw to, which is insane for any rookie quarterback. I mean, he's coming into a pretty good receiving core there. Pretty good receiving situation there for the Bengals. So I think that was a fantastic pick. So the Bengals then get with their 3rd round pick, number 65. Pick number 65, Logan Wilson, who's a linebacker out of Wyoming. He was originally slotted as a 2nd to 4th round pick. He was a player the Bengals were hoping would still be around after on Friday after they took T. Higgins. They hit big with this. They hit a big need with this pick. Wilson gives them a 3-down linebacker with great size, 6'2", 240 pounds, experience with 39 starts, and he's a 3-time team captain for Wyoming. And production, 104 tackles, 9.5 for a loss, 3 interceptions, and 6 pass breakups. So that was a pretty good third-round pick. It was a guy they were hoping would drop to the third round, and he did. So good for them. With the 4th-round pick, they took another linebacker, this time out of Appalachian State, Akeem Davis Gather, whatever. The Bengals surprised with this pick. This is his 4th-round pick, number 107. They might take an offensive tackle, Josh Jones, at this point, a lot of people thought, but Davis Gather was too difficult to pass up. Cincinnati was very thin on linebackers, and this shows that isn't being ignored. Davis Gather was made the defensive captain at the Senior Bowl and adds value to Lou Anarumo's multiple defense scheme as he can play a hybrid role between safety and linebacker. The only knock, and a reason he might have fallen to day 3, is because he has a slight injury concern as he played through a stress fracture in his foot most of the season. But other than that, it was a pretty good pick. He's right now projected to be 4th on the depth chart for linebacker, but he could easily move up to 3. He adds to the group brimming with potential. Mostly void of production, though, outside of Bynes, as they're mostly just don't have a lot of experience in this position. So it was a good pick there to take him, but they missed out on a potential offensive lineman. So in the 5th round, pick number 147, Khalid Kareem, defensive end from Notre Dame. Kareem brings a rare 84-inch wingspan and adds another quality edge rusher to the Bengals' front 7. A high-effort leader who finished with 5.5 sacks among his 46 total stops in 2019. Kareem can play as an outside linebacker, but is viewed now more as a defensive end. There's concern as he's coming off a labrum surgery in January, but he expects to be ready for training camp, and some are already looking at him as the next Carl Lawson. So, right now, he's projected to be the 4th D end here. He could make a big splash, but it might take a while for him to develop. So I mean, it's an okay pick. It's a good 5th-round pick in my opinion. 6th-round pick. They had a Kareem. Now they got a Akeem Adeniji. I don't know, dude. Offensive tackle from Kansas. So it took longer than expected for the Bengals to draft an offensive lineman to protect Joe Burrow. But the team hit a need where there wasn't much better value at other positions at this point. So Bengals offensive line coach Jim Turner has been high on Adeniji since scouting him at the Senior Bowl, where he filled in at guard despite playing tackle all 4 years at Kansas, which shows his versatility there. He's versatile and experienced. He's added depth to the offensive line and could push the competition at guard or right tackle. So, he's on the depth chart right now, projected depth chart. He's going to be the 4th tackle. He could definitely, he's definitely going to be a backup. He's probably going to be a backup for Jonah Williams on the left side there. So pretty good pick. I mean, it's a solid pick, solid 6th-round pick in my opinion. You get depth. He could turn out to be a pretty good offensive tackle. 7th-round pick, their last pick of the draft. Pick number 215 here for the Bengals. Marcus Bailey, linebacker, Purdue. Few would have expected the Bengals to take a 3rd linebacker, but again, it was a big area of need, and Bailey could end up being a steal. He likely would have gone much earlier in the draft, but 2 ACL tears drove down his stock, the latest coming in September and causing him to miss most of his senior season. He's smart, hard-nosed tackler, and as a 7th-round pick, he's low risk, high reward potential, even with his injury history. Now, the injury history is, of course, a little frightening. I mean, 2 ACL tears, and, of course, 1 coming in September, so he might not even be fully ready to play by the time the season rolls around. If we have a season, who knows? But, yeah. But those are their picks. So overall, I think, I mean, they they got 2 huge playmakers for their offense, which was a huge issue this past year. Their offense was pretty bad. They add some depth into linebacker. They get a offensive lineman to kind of help out there. They get Khalid Kareem, who's an edge from Notre Dame. Like I mentioned, he doesn't have the edge speed to pile up the sacks, but Kareem is a physical edge setter, which could earn him rookie on-field reps. With his length, bear claws for hands, he can reduce inside and attack the pocket from different angles, which that will help that defense out a little bit more. But like I said, they get playmakers, they fill the need with linebackers. I'm not doing draft grades because I don't know enough about every team's needs and stuff like that to really give a full-on grade. But this is a pretty good draft by the Bengals, because you get potentially the guy to replace A.J. Green, you got the guy to replace Andy Dalton, then you get 3 linebackers that, one of them's got to be good, right? And if all 3 are good, then you're golden. So anyways, that is it for us, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for listening. If you like the podcast, like, rate, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. You can follow me on Twitter at Strickland_Josh, and I'll talk to you all on Tuesday. Hope you have a great rest of your Sunday, and I hope you have a great Monday as well. Yeah, add an extra day to that. See y'all on Tuesday.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.